Okay, so let's think about this. Does the leadership development space serve up warm tea inside of leadership analytics? Let's kind of explore that. And I think that the first thing that we have to do is let's talk about what leadership analytics actually means.
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you what I think it means, because I don't consider myself an analytics expert. I think that that's something that you bring to the party. So I want to put my view of what it's out there, and I want you to coach me where I need to be coached. So the answer to the question called, what are leadership analytics? For me, it is about providing evidence that helps a leader or a business to continually direction and decision.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, I think that leadership and businesses are always trying to direction and decision. It's a cyclical, continuous process.
Yep.
Everyone, folks have heard us talk about at Rejuvi that our approach to directioning and decisioning is about the leader thinks and drives, and the businesses builds and sustain.
Yep.
So, leadership analytics is providing evidence to help a leader and a business continually direction and decision. And I believe that there are two types of evidence that are paramount to this process.
Yep.
One is what I would call attribute level evidence.
Yep.
And the second is what I would call outcome-based evidence.
Yep.
Okay. So let me explain what I think attribute-based evidence is. I think this is an attribute about what makes a leader or a business fantastic.
Yep.
So, for example, we know an attribute of leader excellence might be a competency called curiosity.
Correct.
Especially, for example, for a team leader. That's an attribute. And we have to figure out how to measure that.
Yep.
An attribute at the outcome level might be, I like to think of them as KPIs, key performance indicators.
Yep.
Right. So, and I think they fall into three categories. I think they fall into people outcomes. I think they fall into operational outcomes, and I think they fall into value outcomes. So people outcome might be something like what's happening to our rate of turnover.
Mm-hmm.
An operational metric might be something like what's happening to our efficiency ratio.
Yep.
And a value-based metric might be something like what's happening to our market share.
Correct.
Okay, so leadership analytics is stuff. It is evidence at two levels, at the attribute level and at the outcome level. And these analytics help a leader and a business to direction and decision over time. That's what I think leadership analytics are.
Right on. And I think there's nothing I could disagree with what you just said. It's really, I think, when you go to the core of analytics, and let's kind of layer away from leadership development and leadership development specific analytics, right? Which you were kind of describing. When you actually kind of, look at analytics as a subject, it's really to analyze information at hand at a very basic level. And it's very simple, right? We all tend to get super overwhelmed with the subject of analytics. I think the minute somebody says analytics, I think everybody has a very different idea of what it is.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that we started off with basically saying, hey, let's level the playing field. When we say leadership and analytics, what are we talking about, right?
Yes.
So that's fantastic. If you layer away from leadership analytics, really analytics is all about, you have a set of information. You want to take that information. You want to, first of all, describe it. You want to diagnose it, you want to predict from it, and you want to prescribe from those predictions, right? That's it. That's the process. You can be in small data, minute data, big data, advanced data. It's all the same. It's all the same process. Okay. So when you think about what you just said, attribution, right? Outcomes, and you said that the outcomes are multiple fold. That's really what you're doing, correct? You're basically saying, if you take curiosity for, say, this team leader, and if that becomes an attribute that's measurable, now you can actually say, okay, I'm going to diagnose how much of that attribute is pushing on those three outcomes that you just described. You know what I mean?
That's
right?
And
so to me, that's what analytics is. So when you bring those principles and you apply them to any field, it becomes analytics applied to that field. And guess what? When you apply that to leadership development, you have leadership development analytics. The idea then is, the idea is that it's the game then is, how do you attribute, what do you attribute, and then how do you connect it to the outcomes? I think that's the whole kind of, that's the whole, big discussion, or the intellectual challenge, if you may.